What's up, everyone, and welcome to the first edition of 2025's DNB Raps. We have got a very special episode for you today. I've recently had the honor of privilege of joining one of the premium drum and bass labels on the planet, and in celebration of their 5-year anniversary, we have got a very special gathering today featuring a number of artists and people from behind the scenes on that label. And we're going to be celebrating that 5 years of the label's existence, talking to some of the key people who are involved as well. Now, I'm going to give some introductions. One of them is shortly on their way, but we have one of the, what shall we say, long-standing kind of figures in drum and bass, all the way from Switzerland, Aaron, aka Task Horizon. How you doing, Aaron?
So good, man. Thanks for having me.
No
unfortunately, the rest of the guys don't have time. Tim and Flo will not be here today, but yeah, I will represent them.
Excellent stuff. And we'll get into obviously the team a little bit later on, but we've also got another relatively new member to the Evolution Chamber team as well. He's causing some major waves in a Scottish way. We have got Kenny, aka Ekwols. How you doing, Kenny?
Yeah, I'm good, Lee. Thank you so much for having me on, man. Really appreciate it.
No worries. And we're filming this just after Christmas. I'm loving the Christmas decorations, Kenny. It's looking very festive in the background. So
it's actually a glow up pentagram, so it can work all year, to be honest.
Was that on top of the the Christmas tree, was it?
No, we've got a skull on top of the Christmas tree this year, which is good. Yeah.
And instead of a turkey, did you sacrifice a goat or something?
No, actually, I'm actually vegan, so we had some form of pea protein, yeah, turkey breast type affair.
Very good, very good. Well, of course, you can sacrifice them. You don't have to eat them, of course.
Exactly. Yeah.
Toss the carcass away once you've done your bits and bobs. But no, very good to see you guys. Thank you for joining me, especially at this busy time of year. Obviously, we are missing a few people as well. One is on their way, one half of Magnitude, aka James Magnitude. But unfortunately, we've not been able to secure the likes of Receptor, of course, Jawfode as well, who and of course Rustam, the other art of Magnitude. So really sorry to see you guys not being able to make it, but of course they're spending time with their families and friends as well. So let's get into a little bit about the label then. Aaron, we'll start with yourself. Did you actually imagine the label being where it is today when you first started those releases on Evolution Chamber? Because it was a bit of a pre-label before Evolution Chamber, wasn't there, Aaron?
Yeah, well, I always wanted a label family. What we have now, with all these people coming together and with the family vibes you mentioned, I always wanted that, but I was not, I didn't know if I could do it. In 2012, after some really depressing business talks with certain big labels, I'm not gonna name right now, they were sitting on tunes of us for years. I was so frustrated, and I wanted to make my own label. Yeah, and I bought the license in Zurich and I started it all. I had a couple releases, but I was totally overwhelmed with everything. I was not made out to do it all myself. I'm a musician first, and the whole label work was just too much for me. So it died really quickly. Also, I had some personal stuff going on. I stopped with music for a couple of years. Then when I started doing music again, James and I linked up, and yeah, that was the start of the new beginning. Because when he came here, he was supposed to stay with me for a couple of weeks, like make some tunes, maybe hang out. And then out of a couple of weeks, a couple years became. Maybe we should wait till he's here for talking about these stories some more. But yeah, I had a soft launch. Long story short, I had a soft launch the label around 2012, but it died down again. And 5 years ago, James and I, we decided to restart it, and most of all, like also, what do you call it? It was Evolution Chamber Records before. Now it's only Evolution Chamber and a bit different. So we kind of rebranded the whole thing. And let's wait for James.
Yeah, we'll get some more stories from James, but I totally understand your outlook of that as well. I've been in a similar situation myself, not so much with the labels, but like back in 2001, I started an event up. I used to do like hardcore music, and I started an event called Bedlam, and it was just a small event. I was running it all on my own, and I kind of just got burnt out with it. Do you know what I mean? After about 2 years of doing it on myself and no team, I was like, I can't do this. I need some time off from it. And then literally like a year later, an old school friend of mine basically turned up on my doorstep, says, "Hi, how you doing? Are you still into the music? Let's put an event on." I was like, funny you should say that. I've already got an event, but you know, I've not done it for a little while. And we kind of rebranded the Bedlam name into just Total Bedlam. So it was a rebrand, a relaunch, and it was, like I say, it was that soft relaunch, but it took it into the stratosphere. So it sounds like there's a similar story there, where again you're doing it on your own. There was nobody else around you to help, and as soon as that opportunity was kind of put in front of you, I guess you were just, I've still got the itch for it. I want to give it a really good shot, and that's where it went from there.
Yeah, absolutely like that.
Brilliant stuff. So when James comes again, we'll talk about his obviously his team up with Rustam, aka Rusty K, that make up Magnitude. But when was the year that you met up with those guys, Aaron?
Oh my God, around I think 2015, 2016. I was doing some stuff for Close to Death, and James was working for Close to Death. And just talking to him, like a good friendship started. So I think that was, God damn it, that was the end of 2015, 2016, around then. Yes, so quite a while, man. Shit, time flies. It's scary.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned Close to Death. I mean, just a side note, I did want to actually mention Close to Death because I noticed James and Rustam, yourself, Mitra, Receptor. I don't know if you have as well, Kenny, but most people, it's you've not been on Close to Death Records. You're not in a release with them.
Unfortunately, no.
It's not. That to me seems like the entry. It's almost like that's where you get your wings if you're a neurofunk producer. Everybody who's anybody just about has had a release with Close to Death, haven't they? it's the intro. Jade's been on there. Every big name you can think of's probably started off on Close to Death as well. So yeah, meeting on there, it does make me happy to hear that, because I'm good friends with Ian as well at the label. And
nice.
But maybe you can get yourself in there, Aaron, just to have that say of that. Yeah, I've been on Close to Death as well. Sorry, Kenny.
Yeah, definitely.
So where does Receptor come into all this? Because unfortunately, Mitra has not been able to attend obviously this interview. Where does he come into all of this then, Aaron? Obviously, he's a big part of the label as well.
Yeah, I mean, Mitra is also a branded child, if I can tell that, like with a lot of bad experience with labels. I'm not going to tell any names, but this was one of the biggest motivations back in 2012, but also when James and I started working together 5 years ago. More than 5 years ago, a lot of the motivation came out of frustration of working with labels and being promised stuff, never getting paid, the usual. So I guess Mitya was also one of those branded children, like with some bad experience, and we just I mean, he was in Russia and James was living with me in Switzerland, so the communication was a bit more different. But he was also like, yeah, let's do it. Let's start a new label. Yeah.
Great stuff. Yeah, it's probably a good idea that Mitra's not here, because I'd be sat fangirling out with him, basically. I wouldn't be able to help myself. Do you know what I mean? I'd be like a little 12-year-old girl at Harry Styles.
Oh man, like he was such a big influence for all of us, I guess. Yeah. Having him on the label is a big honor, and seeing him getting back into form is also like it's also wonderful to see.
He's still quite young as well, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? He's been around a long time, and he's probably started quite young on, hasn't he? Really?
I'm not even sure. Is he like 32? Kenny, do you know? I think he's 30.
Yeah, I don't know his age.
30.
No.
Maybe. Well, oof.
Yeah, I can't remember how
Yeah.
old he is exactly, but for somebody who's been around and done a lot like he has, is still quite a young guy. And I think his sound actually lends itself quite well a bit to yours, Kenny, as well. I mean, could we actually see maybe a Receptor collaboration in the future, do you think?
Oh, I would be honored to do that. Absolutely, yeah. We'll see. Yeah, let's see what comes up over the next year. With, I know there's some secret projects coming up on Receptor side, so I won't say anything about that. It's not my place, but let's see, man. Let's see.
Yeah, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, and all that. But there's a lot to come, obviously, from Evolution Chamber and especially Receptor. I mean, some of his back catalogue. I mean, a lot of people know him from that Breed, like Lifted Music had the sub-label Breed 12 Inches, and he had that track Rhino on there. Do you remember that track that came out on Breed?
Yeah.
I think that's what he's kind of mostly known for. But there's only, I mean, you go on Beatport, there's a handful of tracks on Beatport before that, but his music is far more extensive than that, with some absolutely huge releases that kind of before the Beatport days, really. So there's digital releases and things that have been out there, vinyl releases that just never seen Beatport and Spotify, isn't there? He's got a huge back catalogue.
Yes. Also some things we can't say right now. I can talk about, but I can't say anything more.
I promise I'm not trying to tease you into an announcement. I promise I'm not trying to do that.
I know. And for me, Dawn of the Dark Days remix, the Black Sun Empire Foreign Beggars Receptor remix of that Dawn of the Dark Day. This is, if I have to choose one of Mitya's work that really influenced me, I still play that in my set. So wow. Yeah, he's an amazing producer.
Yeah, that blew my mind when I first heard it, man. Like, it was so detailed, so much going on, and so clean, as all Matthias' work is. It's so clean. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Excellent stuff. So just want to get into a bit of your background, Aaron, if that's okay. You're based in Switzerland, is that right?
Yeah.
Whereabouts in Switzerland are you?
It's in a little town called Wesen, about an hour from 45 minutes to an hour from Zurich. It's super small, it's super quiet, it's super boring, it's totally Swiss. There is a beautiful lake. Kenny was there last summer.
Yeah, man, it's absolutely gorgeous. Yeah,
surrounded by mountains. There is no nightlife at all.
No.
I love it. My introverted ass, I just can be here and make music, and I love it. Yeah, I will die here. It's the best.
I've not been to Switzerland yet. My partner, she has been a few times, and she keeps telling me she's gonna take me over at some point. But you really won the guess where I live lottery, didn't you? Really, there, Aaron? By the sounds of it. I mean, it's supposed to be one of the top places to live in the world, isn't it? Anywhere in Switzerland, it's, you know, crime figures are quite low and stuff. The air's quite clear, as opposed to.
I have to lock my doors. Yeah. I do, but I don't really have to. There's literally nothing happens here, and it's nice. Not everywhere in Switzerland, but most of Switzerland is very safe. I can walk around as a woman in the night and everything, and it's fine. So
beautiful.
My wife is from Puerto Rico, and she really enjoys the peacefulness and the quiet here, and no crime, and yeah.
And of course, our Kenny, he is from Scotland. Do you keep your doors open often, Scotland?
We do, but the weather comes in a lot, so no, it's not quite so safe, I don't think. Certainly not to where Aaron lives. It's one of the most beautiful places I have ever visited in my life. It's pretty,
there's a lot to Scotland though, as well, isn't there? I mean, you've got, obviously you can live in the big cities and things like that, which is just like any other city. You know, you've got your bad bits, your good bits, but then obviously you can go a bit further north, and it is just kind of, you know, big nice mountains and, you know, rivers, lakes and things like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of Scotland to see. There's a lot of Scotland even for me to see. My wife and I just got a camper van, so we're going to start doing that next year and maybe taking the decks out and to some interesting locations. You never know. But yeah, Scotland has a lot of beautiful countryside. It's just trying to catch some weather where it really kind of shines. That's the hardest part.
You're gonna bring the cats?
Yeah, they love it. Yeah, but they keep getting under the pedals, you know, while you're driving.
The last time we had cats on this podcast, so I was interviewing Stonks, and for about 15 minutes of the podcast, we just had a cat's arse into the camera lens, just literally flashing its backside. So keep an eye out for that. Have you got more than one, have you, Kenny?
Yeah, we've got a pair. Yeah, they keep themselves entertained a lot of the time, but it's good when one is wanting to give you warm hugs, the other one isn't, and vice versa. So
good stuff. I'm not so much a cat man. I do want to get some pets, but my children are very young at the moment, so I'm in the position where I wouldn't be able to handle it at all, literally. So yeah, they're 100 miles an hour at the minute. I've got a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old. So
oh my god, you're busy.
yeah.
Deep
Having
in
two
it.
at that age as well, it's quite intense, as you can imagine. So growing up in Switzerland then with music, Aaron, what were your inspirations, and tell me a little bit about the journey, how you actually got into music and how that went to producing, and where did drum and bass come into it?
Early 90s, my dad brought me a jungle compilation double CD from London when he was there, and I was fucking hooked. It was just so different than anything else, but it wasn't as mind-blowing as a couple years later when we had this radio show in Switzerland on Friday nights. They would play like vinyls. This was called, it's a long time ago. I think they had the white label in the evening and then the black label at night, at midnight, where they would play some really underground vinyl from the shops. And they played a Johnny L tune, and it was the first time I something like dark, not jungle, like I guess it was tech step back then, I guess. And this completely blew my mind because it was just a way of expressing yourself musically that I've never seen before, and the whole futuristic sci-fi style, it just caught me instantly. So that was like mid-90s, and there was no way to get the music but to buy vinyl. So I went to Zurich, and once a week with my friends, and we would listen to dub plates coming from London over there, and overpriced dub plates, like test presses and stuff, and we will fight over them.
Well, you got the overseas taxes to bring them over, haven't you, as well? So it's going to be a bit more expensive.
Yeah, and also the dude, he would like, Baltz was his name. He had this shop in Zurich. He would go once a week to London and then rip us off with prices of the dub plates and get from NDC and stuff. He went to Black Markets, Nicky's shop, and brought all these overpriced, totally fucked up plates, like played and rewind 1,000 times, but we would still like pay $50 for them. It was the only way to get them. I still had bad company dubs with stuff that never came out, and it's like, oh my god. Yeah. Anyway, so that was the start, buying vinyl, and then one led to the other.
Brilliant. And what was your first kind of what was your first inklings into wanting to produce music then?
That was an accident. I didn't know what to do with my life, and someone told me, yeah, you should go into computer because there's a future with that stuff. So young Aaron, I went with my parents to look at a school. It was the SAE School of in Audio Engineering. It was called different back then. They had also like computer class, and I was there to check out the computer classes, and I saw these other learning studios with like equipment, with mixing desks and stuff. And my parents saw how I intrigued was with that, and was like, why don't you do that? Why don't you do like some audio engineering? So I started that in the late 90s and got my engineering degree, built my own studio early 2000. And I think the first releases we had around 2003 maybe, but that wasn't Tasco back then. There was some other weird names. Some of them I'm not going to mention.
Very good. But I think it was 2005 your first Task Horizon one, wasn't it? On Sudden Death.
That could be, yeah. That could be Sudden Death. Maybe there was one before, a bootleg of a Depeche Mode tune on a US label. I'm not sure about that. Let's say Sudden Death was the first one.
Were you doing other genres of music then before drum and bass? Did you dabble into anything else?
I did a couple of hip hop LPs for my friends. I'm actually working. Can I say that? I guess I say it. I'm working on an album for the late Lee Scratch Perry, which is going to be full on like some kind of progressive dub or side up. I don't even know. Kenny heard a couple tunes.
Yeah, incredible, man. I couldn't believe it when you brought those out.
Thank you, mate. But this is so different to the drum and bass you hear from Task Horizon, so people would not like recognize this. I like to do other things on the side, but drum and bass is the most important. That's my passion. That's what I talk. That's what I think. That's what it's always going to be the biggest passion.
It is quite funny. A lot of people do think that, you know, as producers and things like that, they hear you make drum and bass and that must be all that you actually make. It must be all you listen to all day, because probably that's, you know, when you come out of school, you like that. But as you do get a bit older as well, you probably, like you say, you don't listen to it, do you?
No,
you know what I mean?
Drum and bass is the drum bass I like is too specialized to just listen to it, and like you have to consume it. You either dance to it, you either like make it actually, you play it, you dance to it, as I said, or you have it on in the gym while you work out, while you drive fast. I don't know. It's something for me that I really have to consume, not listen on the side. And I guess nowadays, after more than 20 years, a lot of drum and bass is just boring. So like non-electronic music is what I listen to. I like my wife puts on some progressive rock because it's so different. My brain can't like analyze some mix downs and analyze sound design, so it's much more relaxing to me to listen to. Yeah, I guess when I listen to other music to music at all, it's almost never drum and bass.
Yeah, 100%. I listen to a lot of podcasts, you know, in my spare time.
What's that, sorry?
Podcasts.
Podcast.
You know, comedy podcasts, you know, like I come from like I started, I think it was like maybe around 2012. I discovered like a thing called Opie and Anthony, which is a bit like Howard Stern. Do you remember Howard Stern?
Yeah, of course.
US? Yeah, so he's kind of, they call it a shock jock. So like radio, talk radio, but quite offensive and, you know, kind of taking the mickey and stuff. And then from there I discovered things like Joe Rogan, and then obviously podcast blew up after that, didn't they? So yeah, unless somebody sends me like a mix for one of our podcast shows or a mix series, if I've got to check something, that's probably the only time in the car I'll listen to kind of drum and bass. But yeah, I kind of save it for, there'll be an afternoon, maybe cleaning the house, I'll put some UK garage on and stuff like that. And if I'm in the gym, I'll probably listen to a drum and bass mix and things like that, or still even, you know, just some kind of inspirational podcast stuff and things like that as well. So quite eclectic. And I think that probably comes a bit with your age as well, doesn't it? Like it's back in the day, you may be consuming too many disco biscuits and that's all you're probably listening to and things like that. What do you listen to that's not drum and bass, Kenny, then? Have you got an eclectic?
I've got, a really wide range of tastes for sure. I came from the kind of punk rock scene and all the rest of that, so I still listen to a lot of punk, metal, kind of hip hop as well, and as much weird, odd electronic stuff as I can find, because that's often where on the fringes is where you get these wild ideas, right? If you're listening to something and it just sounds like something you've never heard before, and you think, how can I put that into what I'm doing? That kind of new idea or something, and that's why it's good to kind of search outside of your zone and pay attention to other music, I think. And like Aaron says, I think when you've analyze drum and bass to the minutiae of like milliseconds of the transient of the kick and the snare, it's really hard to listen to it in the same way that you used to for pure enjoyment. You have to be doing something. I listen to a lot of drum and bass when I'm skateboarding, like out skating and doing stuff like that, because it's an activity and then I can get into the zone. But just to have music on, it's you spend more time analyzing it than you are actually listening to it. So
exactly, yeah, man. Well put.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing as well I do tend to kind of go for, my big dopamine here is nostalgia as well. So you mentioned a couple of genres there, obviously, like punk. Like I grew up, my dad listened to punk and he was quite young, my dad, when he had me. He was like 17. So I was growing up while my dad was in his 20s, and he'd listen to punk all the time. My mom had listened to Motown, so I had quite an eclectic thing. So if I hear that, if I hear Motown or punk, I love it and I listen to it. I probably put that in the car. And you mentioned 90s hip hop as well. I mean, I'm wearing my Gravediggers t-shirt today.
Representing.
Yeah. So I'm you know, if I put an old Wu-Tang album on, some Onyx, Naughty by Nature, anything like that at all in the car, that really, really sets me up for my day. The nostalgia hit gives me untold levels of dopamine into my head. That does, like, absolutely. But we've actually touched base on some things, obviously musically, that we've kind of shared an interest in before. I mean, obviously, like I was saying before, I was doing the hardcore stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Being Scottish, I mean, surely you cannot get away from the Gabber and the hardcore. It's going to hit you somewhere in Scotland, isn't it?
Absolutely. I grew up listening to that stuff, you know, like 94, probably 95. So I would have been 10, 11. And it was like sharing those rave tapes at school between each other. You know, me and my mates we were music, we weren't sport, and it was hardcore, happy hardcore, Gabber. You know, all the stuff from the Netherlands at the time. Like, Lenny D, Bass Generator, and man, it was a good time.
I love Bass Generator, absolutely. I remember the first time I heard his tape. That was my introduction to, you know, some really mental industrial speedcore as well. I'd never heard anything like it. I mean, I'd heard a bit of like the London sound, like Def Jam, you know, producer Hellfish kind of thing, but I'd never heard anything like Bass Generator before. And it was because he played at a rave in Sheffield in the north of the UK called Uprising. It was like a weekly rave. That's where me and all my school friends went and kind of enjoyed it. But yeah, I mean, even now, like, I see, if I make music, a lot of my influencers go, right, you know what, I want that sample from that Roughneck tune, or I want to get that sample. Everything to me has always had that influence.
Yeah. Because it was still quite close to hip hop as well in terms of samples and all the rest, right?
Hey, here he is.
James,
that's all right.
Yes, I'm late.
Welcome to the late arrival of James Magnitude. How's it going, buddy?
Yeah, I'm all right, man. Just a little bit, you know, when you've just done like 101 things and you've got to jump into something and you're still a little bit all over the place.
That's all right, mate. That's all right. How about we let you just kind of listen to what me and Kenny are talking about in our conversation here, and then we'll start to include you as you climatize to the conversation and the energy that we've already got. But me and Kenny were just talking about old school Gabber, basically, and kind of music influences. So do you regularly take any kind of influence from those sounds in your music? Because obviously there's definitely some hardness, some metal aspects that maybe you'd see in the Gabber stuff as well, Kenny.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I digitized a lot of those rave tapes when I got rid of my tape player. I mean, so I check them every now and again, and it's that nostalgia hit, like you say, remembering the old samples, remembering the way that we used to make dance music was quite different from what it sounds like now, and the techniques they used and things like that. So I think for me, it's not like using the samples from that era or the synth stabs, which you do see pop up from time to time, but it was more the energy and some of the ways they build energy in a genre that was like really at the forefront of dance music at the time, you know. So yeah, it's good. It's good to go back and listen to it, man. It's pretty forward thinking.
One thing I really love to do with a lot of those like old techno, old Gabber stuff, and even any other genre as well, is that I'd love to kind of find where they got the samples from and the sound effects, because it was very common before the digital era to sample movies and TV shows and things, and you know, it was always a mission to try and find what that sample was and what this sample was and things like that. You can't really do that as much now, but did you take anything like that? Because obviously you use a lot of original stuff now as well, and you know, that's kind of replacing those sounds, isn't it? When you're using your vocals back in the day, you probably would have sampled that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. I'm definitely coming at it from a slightly different viewpoint, trying to use a lot of natural instruments that I can or can't play, you can say, but using different instruments to get sounds into a song makes it a little bit different, and not like a sample you'll be able to get on Splice or on one of the kind of places that you can pick them up. No, it's not to say I haven't used those things, and they are really useful, but for me, that's where it really starts to feel like my own sound, is when I've put some of that stuff in there, you know, my own vocal, pitch it up, pitch it down, do all that kind of thing to it. But yeah, those old samples, I've got a few of those old classic sample CDs digitized that they used to use, and it's just just like they used every single sample in the entire CD. You would recognize every single one from the early rave era. It was basically 2 or 3 sample CDs those guys had, and yeah, I dug around on torrents for those a long time ago.
Oh yeah, 100%. I used to love picking up the like the Dutch ones. You could get like ones which were just a cappella CDs and things like that. And I remember going to Rotterdam Records in Holland about 2003, and I spent I must have spent about 150 quid on a cappella CDs, which had all of the Roughneck samples and things like that. And I used to toy around with those as well. But you seem like you're more into a lot of the original sounds though than the sampling, Aaron. Obviously, you've got a lot of instruments there in the background. Are you quite fluent with your instruments? Do you use that quite a lot in your sounds, or is it more just the soundscapes and creating stuff on the door?
Excuse me, are you addressing me? I didn't catch them.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry, Aaron. I was talking about you.
You've
got a lot of instruments in the background there. So. Wake up, Aaron. It's your turn.
It's my broken MIDI keyboard, man. I can't. No, I don't. I can't play an instrument. Unfortunately, I can't. I wish I had. I still struggle with hearing chords and stuff. So no. I wish I had an instrumental background. But I think Kenny has a lot of instrumental backgrounds. This is why I thought you're talking to him.
No, yeah. I mean, obviously, we were talking about sampling quite a lot there as well. And, for me and Kenny, we kind of, knowing that kind of music, the Gabber background, it was heavily sampled with a lot of different things. So quite a contrast to drum and bass and dance music today, because you can't get away with a lot of sampling like you could back then, It definitely was hard to do. So we come to you, James. I think we best include you in the conversation before you fall asleep.
No, it's all good. One thing as well about sampling is like when let's say, for example, you're watching a movie and just out of nowhere you see a sample. Like I can't remember the name of the movie. It's a sci-fi movie, and it had the Right Here, Right Now sample in it. And I remember watching it, and I was like quite young, stoned, and was sat there like watching the movie, and then right here was like, we need to do this right here, right now. And I was like, yo, that's the sample. And we were all rewinding it back, and that it was on the Sky Sci-Fi channel or whatever. No, Sci-Fi channel on Sky. And we just kept rewinding it back, and then showing it to my friends. It was like, see, it's the Fatboy Slim sample. And we were all just like, rah, you do have those kind of mind-blowing experiences.
So we watched a horror movie, didn't we?
Which one?
With the devil, I think it was called. I sampled get out of that after that.
Which one was it?
I sent it to you. It's the deep trance mechanics tune.
Yeah.
Is that one of your older tracks, is it?
No, it was supposed to be an E-Brain demo, but I guess we're gonna throw it on Evolution Chamber. I have to talk about with James about that.
Yeah, of course.
I'll send it later.
Well, we've been getting to know both Kenny and Aaron a little bit intimately about the background, James, and just talking about how they came up and got to be a part of Evolution Chamber. Yeah. I wanted to talk to you about the beginnings of Magnitude as well, because obviously Magnitude is part of yourself, formerly Jay Overtech, as I used to know you have when we were regularly sharing neurofunk podcasts over Facebook.
Long time ago, man. That's
14, 15 years ago, I think.
Yeah, 2010, something 11. Like that. Yeah, 2011. Yeah.
That's it. And
mad.
Just a bit after that time is kind of when you started collaborating with Rusty K. Rustum, of course, who unfortunately can't join us today. He's with family and friends over the Christmas period. But yeah, I wanted to kind of get a bit more of a structure to how it happened, because obviously when you go online and we look at obviously how the label started, you guys kind of put a self-release label out to get some of your tunes out from other labels that you got the rights back to, but then some of the collaborations with yourself were out there under Rusty K. So tell me how that timeline works, James. How did and when did you and Rustam get together, and when was the kind of explosion of Magnitude, let's say?
Take a seat and prepare for bromance. It's a long story, but I'll try and cut it down. So basically, I left university with a degree in music business and law, and then part of one of the assignments was to, you know, think of something that you'd like to write about, and in that process I was just like, yeah, you know what, the mechanics of setting up a label. And I was doing some work experience at Renegade Hardware a long time ago, and yeah, from there I was constantly in contact with Ewkols, and yeah, I just decided to do an assignment about the mechanics of a record label. And because yeah, in the music business side, like when we were discussing about labels and everything like that, it was more about like the major side of things rather than the independent side. So it was much more technical, and you'd be having contracts that were like that thick that you'd be going through and just like figuring things out. And I remember even saying to the tutor, I was just like, yo man, like this, half this stuff would never apply to any of us. So he said to me, why don't you do something about setting up an independent record label? So I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. And then as things started to kind of funnel together, yeah, I was like, you know what, I might set up my own label. And yeah, I used to sit on the Lifted Music forum. Yeah, and I remember like speaking to quite a few people on there. We all became like friends and pals on the Lifted forum, like Xylent, High Maintenance, Eighth, Maztec, Billen. There were so many people that were on there.
Yeah,
Even the
VIP.
guys, yeah, Devip, yeah, the Engage, Encode, like all the Russian crew. Yeah, and before I knew it, I kind of had the wheels in motion to set up the first label, which was Overtech Recordings.
That was the
But
one.
yeah, also at the same time, like, you know, I was writing music since, so that was like 2010, 2009, 2010, started actually writing music. Got Fruity Loops 3 when I was 19, I think. So wait, I need to do the maths now. So 2005, yeah, so 2006 I started writing music. Yeah, it was like 2009, 2010, and then yeah, like had like the first kind of sections of the label done. And yeah, I remember like chatting to a couple of guys from the Lifted forum, and spoke to High Maintenance, and this is before like he signed to Audio Porn. Yeah, and he was the first release. And from there, I remember like Ian from Close to Death hit me up, and like we put out a few releases and stuff before Ian hit me up. And then Ian said to me, he was like, yo, like I'm really into like your label, if you need any help with anything. And I was just like, oh my god, it's like the owner of Close to Death. I was buying his records for ages. And
we were just saying he was the godfather of neurofunk. He's your entry into it, isn't it?
yeah, we used to call him Neuro Santa. Because every Christmas, yeah, like we had this kind of ritual, because like me and him became really good friends and stuff, you know. Like he invited me down to Gloucester to what did he call it, the C2D mansion. It was just his home, you know. And yeah, we'd go over there, like, you know, we'd have like beers and just talk music the whole time, like get the CDJs out, mixing, just having such a good time, you know. And yeah, like yeah, he'd help me with certain things that I'd like to ask him about, and always pass on his information to me, like in terms of, you know, like how do I do this, like advising me on quite a lot of specifics. And then like before we knew it, like we decided to kind of like Ian, I was helping Ian with some things, like if he got really busy with stuff, before we knew it, like we just kind of like molded together, and we were like, why don't we just create this kind of like friend crew thing? And yeah, then that was like when Ian was just like, yeah, so like, because there was the label Ammunition Recordings. I remember hearing this track called Devil's Show, and it was and I remember like, it was like, I've heard that tune before, like Ian showed it to me, and it was just before played the first ever international gig, which was in Poland, and we played that together. And when we was on the train heading to the airport, we had the tune on, and I was, as soon as I heard it, I was like, I know I've heard that tune before. And I remember like, because I sit on V Contact and Promo DJ, which are like Russian, Ukrainian based websites for music, and like VK is like the Russian Facebook. I used to go on there like religiously, you know, searching for music, searching for producers. And back then, like, you'd be able to find a lot of like unreleased stuff that artists would upload or whatever, but it's not as like.
I remember me and you sending stuff back.
Yeah, exactly. Have you heard this one?
Yeah.
Brand new to it, like, yeah. And yeah, and I remember like checking the inbox in it, and then I'd seen that there was a message from Rustam on VK, and he basically sent over a demo, which was the Devil's Show. And I was just like, oh shit, like I didn't reply, like I totally missed the message, and yeah, didn't get back to him and that. And then like from there, like Ian was contacting him, I was contacting him, we were all like in communication with him. And yeah, I remember like we kind of wanted to kind of get more people on board for Close to Dev. So we got QO, we got Int Company from Ukraine, yeah, Rustam, and there was I can't remember their names now. Human Error, I think they were called. And yeah, we wanted to just like have a little collective of artists and just, you know, do our own thing. And I remember like Rustam one day just sends over, what was it, AC 130 and the Savage. And it literally just like blew my face off, man. And like I was working with him on it because like he needed help with it and stuff, you know, just like a bit of A&Ring and like some like advice to help see it over the finish line. And there was also some other tracks as well. And like, so yeah, from there, like we kind of just started just talking, you know, like, and getting to know each other more, hanging out a lot more online and whatnot. And yeah, and then like that was like we released AC 130 and a Savage back in 2013, if I'm correct. Yeah, and even through that time, like, you know, keep in mind, man, that like working at Close to Death, getting sent so many sick demos, even from Task Horizon as well. Like what I worked on like releases for Mephius. I think gave him his first ever vinyl release. I could be wrong there.
And Jade as well.
Yeah, Jade, Billen as well, or Bilane, Maztec, Blockhead, like worked with so many like incredible producers. And I'd get home and my imposter syndrome would set in as soon as I'd open up Cubase and just be like referencing against all of these new C2D demos and just thinking my tunes are dogs. You know, avoiding the swearing.
You can swear, but I'll probably bleep it out.
Yeah. But you know,
it happens with a blooming algorithm.
I think it's good to try to avoid the bad words. But yeah, I remember like sending Rustam my tunes and stuff, and like I'd always just be like, "Oh, it sounds terrible," and Rustam, "But no, it's cool, it's really good." And then yeah, one day. Yes, so that's actually what happened. So Chris from Lifted actually wanted to sign Rustam as Rusty K exclusive to Lifted. And Rustam was considering it, but then he said to me, he was just like, you know, I'm kind of stuck in Russia here. He was like, you're in Europe. He said, you know, like we could probably work together, but I don't know how. And we were just like, and that was like back in 2014, around 2014 time. And then like it was just, you know, a casual conversation. And then one day I sent Rustam like a couple of ideas, and Rustam said to me, he was like, and whenever he does you know that he's gonna, Kenny knows about the you know, magic is about to happen. And so yeah, I sent, Rustam was like, yeah, these ideas are pretty cool. He said, like, pack them up into WAV files and that, send them over to me and I'll see what I can do. And little did we know that that was the beginning of Warpath and Scorn. And then so we had these two tracks, and then Rustam said to me, he was just like, why don't we just create a project together? He was like, you know, we're really good friends, even though we've not met yet. But yeah, it just kind of feels that like we could work together. You've worked with me for quite a long time now. Actually, I need to kind of rewind, because where we was with Close to Death, Rustam's contract ran out with Close to Death, and I decided that I wanted to move on as well. I kind of felt that, you know, working with Close to Death was amazing, and there was no like bad vibes or anything like that. I just felt that I needed my own challenge, my own kind of setup, my own kind of path and journey, you know. And me and Ian, you know, we had a really good talk, and yeah, Ian was fully supportive of the decision and stuff. And so I went off and set up Overtech Music. I wanted just to completely start fresh. You know, now I've kind of like got to know a lot of people, made a lot of really good connections with a lot of artists, that I just felt like a completely clean slate, start from the very beginning. And yeah, that's when I think we put out Rustam's release, All That We Lost, and Dark Eyes. And then Signal, who then went on to become Emanu. I think I put out his second ever release. Yeah, then we did the Prototype LP. But yeah, it was in that time that me and Rustam started actually making tunes together. And yeah, like we kind of got to this kind of point where we were, you know, trying to figure out what to do. And yeah, I remember like we were sending the tunes out to people, and not a lot of people wanted them. We tried quite a lot of the bigger labels and stuff, and then I remembered that, like, oh yeah, Chris, he loves Rustam stuff, I reckon, and I'm pretty close with Chris, so why not hit up Chris Lifted, and maybe we can see what we can do. I remember, like, as soon as I hit up Chris, and I said to Chris, I was like, yeah, look, me and Rustam, I think we're going to start a new project. At the moment, we've got like 2-3 almost finished tracks. We're trying to start the 4th one now. And Chris was immediately like, goes, I don't even need to listen to him. I want you guys exclusive to Lifted. Like, he just immediately just jumped on it. And so we were like, yo, like, okay. And at the time, like, you know, we thought, this is amazing. Spore's label with Memtrix, Neon Light, Ape, like all of these incredible producers. This is going to be like taking a huge jump at the very beginning. And so, yeah, we got the EP done and stuff. And then I remember sending over to Chris the finals or pre-finals. And then Chris just turns around in the Chris Renegade way, and he was just like, so, like, what you guys going to call yourself then? And I was like, I don't really know. He goes like, what are we going to call you? Like Rusty J, JK? Like, he was just like, nothing makes sense. He goes like, you guys are going to need a new name. And we were like, okay, cool. And I mean, like, that was probably the most hardest part, man. Like, just trying to think of a name for the project, because like, we were literally thumping ideas to Chris. Chris didn't like them. Chris would thump ideas to us. We didn't like them. And we kind of got to the point, yeah, where Rustam said to me, he was like, James, what about Magnitude? But instead of with an I, we change it to an E. And I was like, bro, like, we could be called the most vulgar name right now. I would not care. Like, this EP's been done for like 6 months, and we're just too busy thinking about a project name. Like, at the end of the day, the most important thing is the music, you know? And so went to Chris, and I said to Chris, yeah, like Magnitude, but instead of with an I, with an E. And Chris basically said that, like, he was like, yeah, that kind of feels a little bit arrogant, you know, it kind of feels like you think you're too good. And I was just like, it don't sound like that. And I just said to him, I was like, man, like, I'm now at a point where it's either we go in Magnitude or we just don't go with Lifted. And Chris like, oh, Magnitude it is. And then yeah, that was how the name came about. But yeah, like, me and Rustam, we had known each other since I think we first started speaking in 2010. We first met in 2018, weren't it, Aaron?
Yeah, it was
when Rustam come to us in Switzerland. It was such an amazing days, man.
It's a funny one with the names though as well. I mean, like, it's obviously you've got to pick the right name because you're going to be stuck with it forever, literally. But also on the flip of it, like I said, it's not that big a deal, is it? Because it's not the name that does the talking. I mean, we can say, I mean, look at some of the fucking names that are out there. I mean, you've got things like Funk Case. I mean, come on, like, he's stuck with that for life.
And when people take like a famous person's name and they take like the first letter of the first name and the first letter of the last name and swap it around, it's like, dude, come on, man. You could have just literally just like gone onto the internet and just like searched up like some kind of like name generator to make something a little bit more creative, you know.
I've had some crazy names. I mean, when I first started DJing, like, funnily enough, the first name I chose was Bedlam. DJ Bedlam, which obviously became my event, my label back then. But I noticed there was already a producer doing the same kind of music called Bedlam, so I scrapped that. And before that, when I was 15, I was into MCing. And my MC name...
I had my MC time. Everyone in England did. Come on, everyone in England did.
I want to hear it.
I found an old notepad with all my lyrics in the other day as well.
Really?
Yeah, I was wondering whether to put them online. I was like, nah, nobody's ever seen this.
Sorry for interrupting. One of the most embarrassing things I found at my mum's a couple of years back was like tapes of like me and my mates MCing and stuff over Cool FM sets. Like, it's embarrassing. The quality. But yeah, sorry, you were saying, man.
Yeah, I had an MC name as well. It was Wild Style Lee. That was my 15-year-old Lee Ambler MC name.
Wild Style Lee. That's quite a good one though.
It was for the time, but I look back and I was like, can you imagine if I was still called that as a drum and bass DJ now? I don't think it'd fit. What about your name, Kenny? Where's that coming? Because that's very individual for somebody who's kind of come through. Let's say in the last few years as well. I mean, I'm guessing you. When did you start with the name Ekwols? How long's that been around? Because it's quite original, isn't it?
So as an entity, I guess I'd started. Well, basically going back to Lifted and Rusty K's release Riot on Lifted. Like, I'd had my DJ days, I'd ran events before that, and I'd kind of grown fed up with just the sound of Pendulum and Chasing Status and everything that was happening at the time. And so I'd kind of dipped away from drum and bass, and then heard this track by Rustam, like, on Lifted, and I was just like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. Forget what everything else I've just been doing for the last 6 years. I think 6 or 7 years I didn't do any drum and bass stuff. And yeah, I took it. I started around about then, which is about 2013, I think. And I'd just come from doing punk tours and playing in punk bands.
Oh yeah, you was in a band as well. What was the band called? What was the band called?
I'd been in a few, but the one I was doing then was actually a hybrid of drum and bass and punk as well. It was called From the Cradle to the Rave, and it was a kind of prototype, I guess you could say, for how I write my music now, in terms of bringing the guitar in, bringing vocals in, and trying to make it a bit more like a live vibe, around it.
Rustam was in a similar band like that called Orlean Band. It was a kind of like punk, electronic. Still some music out there. If you type in Orlean Band, you'll find the stuff. It was all produced by Rustam. Like, we're talking like
amazing
2012, 2011. It only went on for a little while, but some of the tunes, man, were ridiculous.
Insane. We need to get that.
I'm trying to dig it out, man. I'm sure I've got some on my external hard drive. Actually, I think I've got loads of stuff on my external hard drive. Yeah, sorry for interrupting.
No, man. I need to hear this. But yeah, so I was coming from that, and the politics and everything and the punk scene for me is I grew up with it, and equality, which is what the name Ewkols comes from. It's a play on that. To me, it seems just like the fundamental thing that we should be given to everyone that we meet, and how we move our way through the world is treating each other with respect and dignity and the way we'd like to be treated. And I couldn't think of a more important name, even though for a genre that's not politicized or not necessarily full of message. It's about having fun and being together. It's the spirit of rave, right? and that's where everyone was equal. So to me, the music is a great equalizer. Raves are a great place for people to feel that and to throw away all the boundaries that we have normally, and it all kind of felt right to me. So that
It's
was
a great.
the name came from that.
It honestly is a great way, and there's so many layers to it there as well. And a lot of the things you were saying are some of the things I was thinking about when I first saw the name as well. I mean, you could even go down the Prince route and just have a symbol, couldn't you? For if you didn't,
you
called it kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, Wild Lee doesn't have that many layers to that, so he could match that, but he doesn't work in that way.
It was good.
What about Task Horizon? How did the name come for that?
Lee touched on something like that you have to be with your name for a long time.
Yeah.
Aware of that, and I wanted something cryptic. I thought back then like the best name in the drum bass scene was like Conquered Dawn and stuff like
that.
So I wanted something with Horizon, and I was working with a person back then. I'm not working anymore, and he suggested like Task, and I kind of liked it, and we ran with it, and I'm kind of glad with it. So I'm still liking the name. So
it does have the Concord Dawn feel to it, definitely.
And it really does fit so well with your music in terms of the futuristic nature of it, the fact that it is so pushing forward and progressive, and I think it's a perfect name for it, to be honest, man. It really, really works.
Hearing your music, I know that you're on the call now, so don't get your head's gonna probably be like, hey. But I remember like hearing your tunes, like when I obviously come up from the vinyl days and stuff, and I remember like discovering what was it, Kill the Pain, finding that in Sister Ray in West End, and I remember hearing that, and I think I was glued to the turntable for about 20 minutes, just constantly playing that tune over and over again, because I was just like, what the hell is this? It was like, right, everything that's Task Horizon now, I need to buy it. And like that was like pretty much the start. And I always found that like your tunes was so ahead of the game back in the day, easily, man. I thought you guys were going to be like the next Pendulum, like in terms of like how futuristic and original and different your music was sounding back then, and it still does to this day. And then we became friends.
BFF.
BFF.
Well, you really did the rounds though early on, didn't you, Aaron? I mean, you were on labels. I made a list here. I mean, DSC 14, Ammunition, Focus, Circle, Black Rain, Mainframe, Habit, Citrus. I mean, fuck. I nearly sweared myself then, but effing hell, that's like the history of neurofunk drum and bass. You've really been been on just about every major label with it, and there's been quite a few iterations as well as on Task Horizon. I mean, there's 3 of you guys now. Can you tell me about the trio that is Task Horizon now, and what your responsibilities are as a group for the brand?
Right now, it's mostly me, unfortunately. Like there is also Flo and Tim. Flo just bought a new house, and he just is gonna have his second child in the next probably 48 hours.
No way.
Maybe it's already here. I have to call him.
How does he keep everything so quiet?
Yeah, I know.
Moves in the shadows, doesn't he?
Yeah, I know. He told me, Aaron, I'm gonna be off for a year or 2, but then he also promised me to be more in the studio next year. His role is he's the relaxed guy. He's the guy who has the distance when I'm like all within the little sounds, and I don't know, it sounds like shit, and then I'm just like, Aaron, take a step back. He calms me down, he calms the situation down. He hears the tune, and he's like, yeah, maybe we changed the arrangement a little bit like this, so it's easier to digest. And I'm like, oh, that's so obvious. Why didn't I think about that? So he brings in the relaxedness, the distance, and he's a great DJ. People love him. He's always in a good mood. He's always smiling. I love him.
The world could be ending, and it's the same with Kenny as well. The world could be ending, and they'll make it positive. You'd be like, we're all gonna die. We're all gonna die. What are we gonna do? No, just relax. Everything's gonna be fine. You're like fully chill. Like, yeah,
At least
like,
we're all together.
yeah, we're all gonna die, but it's fine. Like Flo and Kenny says it's gonna be fine. So we're
yeah, fine. I will be super stressed before a gig. Oh my god! And he's like, "Let's take a nap."
That's so good.
I mean,
yeah, I can attest to that because we were working together, Aaron and I, on some collaboration work recently, and we'd spent maybe 2 days on that one before Flo came to come and have a listen, and he just walked in, and we knew something wasn't right with it, but we didn't know what it was, and we'd been on it for so long. He just walked in, sat down, listened to it once, went, "That's cool, but if you drop that vocal out there, move it here, and change the drum for this bit, it'll work so much better." We did it, and that was the secret sauce.
Yeah.
It was like just like
cool.
that. So calm. Everyone needs a flow, basically.
Everyone needs to blow. I agree.
yeah,
And the third member is Tim Kleinert. He's a music genius.
yeah.
He has perfect hearing. He's teacher at one of the Zurich music universities. He teaches jazz and synthesis, I think. Yeah, and he has perfect hearing. He can play like, this is insane. He would like be like, "Aaron, remember that tune we did like 15 years ago?" And then he will play like a bass line and like, "Oh my god, you remember this? I don't even remember this." Or like when we're bored, he would just take a string sample and then play like movie melodies, and we have to guess the melodies, and it's all on top of his head, like one after the other.
Tim is a machine, man.
Yeah, he's a machine. And he knows shit about drum and bass. He's not into He likes the formula, he likes to do it, but he has no idea what's in, what's not in. So when he comes to the studio, which is not often, but when he comes, it's a highlight because he will bring something completely different. For example, he could do like a jazz lick in an intro or something like that.
That's beautiful.
I learned so much from him when it comes to melodic approach and arrangement and everything, and orchestrating everything. So yeah, it's the three of us.
Aaron, tell Lee about the only time that Tim's ever DJ'd.
Oh fuck yeah.
Was this a booked Task Horizon set, or was it just a bedroom set?
You have to keep in mind, right? Tim is like full like live musician, like he is like musician, not DJ, and yeah, he had an experience.
I'm not sure if you're talking about the same thing. Well, like after we had a gig, he came to me and was like, "Yeah, this is so fucking boring. And, I hate it. I don't want to do that. I want to play an instrument. This is nothing. This is just like pulling up the faders down and saying this is too boring. I need more challenge. I'm never going to do that again."
Yeah, I've been there before, but usually it was because of a fucking empty room.
Yeah.
It's boring. I'm going home. Slam my headphones.
Everyone's been there, man.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, you've got the biggest back catalogue, I would say, and anybody on this call when it comes to tracks and music that you've put out, Aaron. What would you say? I mean, if you were to kind of delve into that back catalogue, which tracks would you say you're probably the most proud of over the years? And bear in mind, I know you've got better and better at producing yourself as you would, but you know, is there any tracks that kind of are quite defining, you're exceptionally proud of over the years that you could mention?
This is surprisingly tough, Lee. I'm not very much into nostalgic feelings at all. So I think always the newest one is the best.
Yeah.
Good way to be.
Oh shit! You didn't put me on the spot right now.
Well, let's talk about the newest one, the E-Brain EP. I mean, that is phenomenal. AstroTurf is definitely a staple of my sets now. So, you know, how long were you working on that EP as a whole?
Almost 2 years.
Wow.
But that also the reason because Jay took so long to get back to.
Yeah.
The tunes were signed like over a year ago, but it also gave me the time to really go back and forth with the tunes and
the thing is though as well is like those kind of delays help the tunes as well, because if you would have put those tunes out back almost 2 years ago, it would no way have sounded, well, they sounded great, but they wouldn't have sounded how they sound now 100%, because there was quite a lot of changes on the tracks too, wasn't there?
Yeah. Immensely, I think.
Yeah.
Right now I'm glad about the delay, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah.
it's funny, like how you, for me, this might be like, I don't know if this is on subject or not, but for me, drum and bass is always about moving the sound forward and progressive thinking and learning. So when Kenny was here this summer, he told me some tricks that he uses that I never heard of, and that turned now to I assimilated them and turned them into different like little tricks that I'm using now. And a lot of those tricks made this EP we're talking about what it is right now, and it wouldn't have been possible without working with Kenny before. So yeah, the delay was really good.
Very good. Well, we are celebrating 5 years of Evolution Chamber, and we're going to jump into one of the tracks now. And
but before you do, we've got brand new Evolution Chamber t-shirts. They've just come in. They'll be on sale soon. So yeah, make sure you get them.
We'll get a link in the comments, hopefully, by the time this goes out, so we can get you buy links. But yeah, just to celebrate the 5 years anniversary, we're going to go into one of my favorite Evolution Chamber tracks. We're going to listen to one of Task Horizon's tracks on that album. This one is called Disintigrate.
This noise in my head, this constant barrage, this cacophony of sound. It's like
So I want to talk a little bit about the signings now on Evolution Chamber. Obviously, Kenny, who's joining us here, has been a major signing to the label. Kenny, do you want to go into how that came about, getting signed to Evolution Chamber?
Yeah, I think I was working with Edgar, who ran You So Fat record label at the time. In fact, maybe going back to the start, I put out a release that was picked up from SoundCloud on Genome Records. Benjamin picked that one up, which then kind of linked me in with Edgar at You So Fat, and he wanted to put out a single and maybe look at helping me as an artist. He thought, there's some good ideas here. Let's see if I can help him grow as an artist. And in doing that, he kind of we got a couple of releases out on Shell Shock Recordings and some of the other labels. But he was sending demos out to people, and one of them was James. And I think from the back of that, we kind of started talking on Messenger and probably spoke for two years or something like that, just about music and about. Bro, I would be sending ideas and hearing. That
was like sorry for interrupting. That was like probably around like 2018, around 2018, wasn't it?
Yeah,
2017, something like that.
17, maybe back end of 17. So a long time ago, and it was a long time before we took that to actually working together. But you kept me building and growing and knowing that you were like, that's a good idea, it needs some work, and kind of giving me pointers about where to go and what to focus on next, because as a producer, you know what it's like. You can talk yourself out of anything good that you've got and come up with something absolutely horseshit at the end of it, right? The more you spend looking at this, at your tunes. So it was great to have that kind of feedback, and it was around about the time, because I guess we're 5 years back, so 2020 for the start of Evolution Chamber, or so 2019,
2019, yeah.
And it was around about the time you kind of started saying, we are starting a label, so send me all your ideas. And so I would send through what I had, and it was Mindless Silence. It was something I'd kind of finished. It was the best I'd done at the time. Needed a hell of a lot of work, needed a hell of a lot of building to take it somewhere, but you took that to Aaron and Rustam and Natalia and discussed about whether this would be something good for bringing in, and at that point you kind of welcomed me into the fold, and from that point I've been part of the family, which has been amazing, because I really was probably, I would say, 3-4 years away from getting my mix downs and everything up to scratch, understanding all the things that were wrong with what I was doing, or not quite there, not quite at the level. But being part of that community of these guys, there's just no gatekeeping, no nothing. All they wanted was the best song out of it, the best track, the best version of the idea that they could see. And that's been it for me, being part of Evolution Chamber ever since. And it really does feel like a kind of family vibe for me. And I owe those guys a hell of a lot. I'll never forget it.
Oh, no, man.
All about the music.
But no, but music. You also showed me that it can be done that way. There doesn't have to be gatekeeping. There doesn't have to be secrets. You can help each other come out with something. And
it's the key. It's the key to a good label. It's the key to a good label. Obviously, having a proper family and working together on it. I mean, within, like I say, within days, I felt a part of the family as well. Do you know what I mean?
But what's real is family.
And obviously meeting some of you guys at the Virus night as well definitely helped. Me and you obviously found some mutual ground straight away, talking about the Gabber. But you're talking about your sound change in there as well, Kenny. And for me, if I look through your back catalogue and tracks that I recognise, it feels like your sound really progressed and changed when you made Serpents, and that's where the Ewkols sound kind of really came into its own. Would you say that's about right?
I think you're right there. I think there's a crux point when you're producing as well, where you can go from imitation and to something that is maybe a bit more naturally you, and that was definitely happening around then for me, because it was a moment where I was able to start to get ideas that were in my head to sound like that in the DAW. Before that, I think it was very okay. This is the genre sound. This is the way to get those kind of elements out, and I wasn't able to quite put in the same level of myself into them, because I just didn't have the skill set, So I think you're right. It's a turning point, the mix down on it is not great anyway. But we was building the mix downs to that point as well, where I could achieve what I had in my mind, you know, for them.
Yeah, it seems like it's the birth of that almost not metal, but like the grungy punk drum and bass influence kind of sound. And anything before that, it was good, but it was your general neurofunk. But then with that track and after that, it had Ekwols. It had Ekwols all over it for me. I think definitely.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Yeah, that one certainly had those aspects.
When we were actually discussing Kenny, like from the very beginning, even like when me and Kenny were talking, and I was living with Aaron at the time in Switzerland, and like I'd show Aaron the tracks, and we'd always say like the ideas are amazing, just needs that little bit of like advice, a little bit of push in the right direction with mix downs, and then as soon as he's got that bit, that's it, it's game over for everyone.
I remember we heard we were listening to your tunes, Kenny, somewhere on Facebook, some UHF release, I think it was. And both James and I, we were looking at each other, and we were both like, we want this dude for the label that we're doing. And we were looking for potential people that we wanted on the label, and we were looking for this. I don't know about James, but I'm always looking for character in tunes. It's the most important thing. Character. It doesn't matter if it's melody or something or whatever, but this identity has to be there. And it was already so apparent with your music, Kenny. Like first tunes I heard, I was like, wow, this guy should join the family.
For sure. It's a great story, and you know, if you've not heard Kenny's music, we're going to go into one of the tracks now. It is on the 5 Years of Evolution Chamber. It's definitely my favorite Ewkols track so far. I have to say that because there's a storm brewing. There's a storm brewing. So listen to this one. This is the track "We Are" by Ewkols.
Born into this world the same, naked and screaming, born into a system that had already chosen our path before we'd left the womb, born to obey, serve, consume, and die. And fuck that, and fuck them. We all matter. We're breathing, our hearts are beating. We're alive and you can't stop us. We are one. We are Ekwols.
And alongside Ekwols being a sign-in for Evolution Chamber, we've also seen the signing of a major name when it comes to neurofunk drum and bass. Probably described online as the second coming of Spore, but in my honest opinion, he's probably a better producer than Spore as well. He's been on just about every major label. You know, they snap up his tracks like disco biscuits when they're on the table. There's basically nothing else to achieve by this guy, you know, but having him working on Evolution Chamber is not only a feather to our bow as a label, but also to the growth of Joe himself. We are, of course, talking about Joe Ford. And yeah, I'll put this one to you, James. What does it mean to actually sign an artist like Joe Ford to the label? And, you know, can you give an inkling into, you know, what he feels about being on Evolution Chamber as well?
Well, the luck that we have is that I've known Joe since he first came out of nowhere. Back in, I think, 2012, I gave him his second ever release, which was on Overtech Recordings under his name Ford. There was no Joe then. Yeah, then put out a couple of other bits from him, and then he went and signed to, he went and put something out on Bad Taste, then put something out on Shogun, then he signed to Shogun. But we always stayed in touch, you know, and we've known each other for a very long time, really good friends. He played his first ever DJ set back to back with me as well, which a lot of people don't know about. Yeah, so like, yeah, so when it came to Joe, and like, I think Aaron, we just kind of like, we had our little clique of like Task Horizon, Magnitude, Receptor, and we just felt, you know, we need some new blood in here. And there was Kenny, super talented guy, who if he comes on board with us, then yeah, we can help him, give him advice with his mix downs, and you know, he's in there like straight away. It's all guns blazing.
I would love to talk about Joe, just like some fangirling, if that's okay.
Yeah,
Let's
go.
Yeah, like having Joe on the label is the biggest thing for me. I'm the biggest fangirl when it comes to Joe, and he actually changed my musical life quite a bit. I was working with Cubase for 20 years, and I was asking him, dude, I love your textures. I don't know how you achieve those textures in your basses and stuff. Can you teach me? And he was like, yeah, of course I can teach you. What DAW are you working with? And I was like, Cubase. And he was like, ugh. I think I made the worst music I ever did on Cubase. It's going to be hard to show you that on Cubase. Can't you switch to Bitwig, which is another DAW for anyone who doesn't know? It's like the programs, the software we make music with. And he got me to change 2 years ago, a little bit more than, and it completely changed the way I do music and has opened the door to a wonderful friendship and a wonderful collaboration. We're doing a lot of shit together, and there is some stuff coming that I can't wait.
It's levels as well.
So yeah.
I believe that, and I truly do believe when he, like I say, when I say people call him the second coming of Spore, I think that's underselling Joe.
Yeah,
totally. He is a better producer than Spore.
in my opinion. Joe and Malux are two of the best electronic music producers in the game, man. Like, I think Malux is massively underrated, massively undervalued, massively overlooked as well.
Yeah. Well, he's a whirlwind of creativity, isn't he? When he releases a tune, you're always going to know about it. I remember booking him in Birmingham in 2018, and the tracks that he played, it was just like literally an hour of dubs, and they were all just insane.
Whenever you hear like a new Joe track or a new Malux track, you know, like you're basically just going to get taught a lesson. You know, like literally 4-minute lesson. You know,
you're gonna have to reevaluate your life, aren't you?
Exactly.
Basically,
you're just gonna go back to the track you're working on and just be like, oh, that's it for the day. I'm done. You know, literally is. And yeah, Joe, I think like for me, like Joe is every producer's favorite producer, especially in drum and bass, even outside of drum and bass, like in dubstep. Like if anyone who's anyone knows the name Joe Ford, and I know if Joe's probably watching this right now, he's probably curling up like no. You know. but yeah, like, and it's exactly the same thing with like all the guys we work with, you know, like everyone's just on a good vibe. No one's above anyone. Like Joe is, like, for us, like one of all of our favorite producers. But he's also
producer, isn't he? That's what
exactly. But for all of us, like, we're all friends, you know what I mean? And like I think that's also one really great thing with our label, is that like we have our own Telegram group where we're sending ideas. We've got our own private Discord group, like when we're working on something that we open it up and we're like just sharing knowledge, you know, and helping each other on their tracks and stuff like that, because we all want what's best for each other and we all want everyone to succeed. There's no one above anyone, no one takes priority over anyone. Like, we all move together as one, and that's how it should be. Like, especially with like a label, and if you've got artists that are on board, like you're like, we're all in this together as like one whole unit to just move forward and just bring out the best of everyone.
That makes us strong.
Sorry?
That makes us strong.
Exactly.
James, remember when we sat together and we spoke about the whole relaunching the label, doing the label together, and we agreed on one thing, that everyone that comes on board needs to match the family vibes. We will not entertain any egos. If you're the best producer ever, but you bring like ego and negativity, and we're not interested.
Yeah.
And this is really working out for us.
Definitely. Like, because, you know, like working with labels, like with Magnitude, Aaron's experienced it, Kenny's experienced it, Joe's experienced it. Like, when you work with certain labels, or like you speak to other artists who work with labels, you can kind of sense that like they have their favorites, you know, like the people that will get pushed forward, the people that would get like the investment put into them and stuff like that, which we kind of find is quite unfair. Like, everyone should be given the same opportunities, the same push, the same level of commitment and dedication to their music as the next person. It doesn't matter. Like, for us, we don't care about your numbers. We don't care about like if you have like 10 listeners on your Spotify. That means nothing to us. Like, all we care about is your music. That is it. Music first, and your vibe, but like as a person, you know. And the most important thing for us is just like to just have, like, because you see it everywhere, like not everywhere, but like sometimes you see online like a lot of people falling out and like arguments and stuff like that. Just don't want that, you know, in our kind of bubble. We want to just kind of just be in our own little unit, put in our good music, and if people like it, amazing. If they don't, it's not the end of the world. If we're all happy with it, we're all supporting each other, we're all pushing each other forward. That's the most important thing, you know. Just want to bring out the best in people, man. And it's
refreshing. It's very refreshing as a record label, especially something on this level as well, with some high profile artists, because we've got a lot of high profile releases we're dealing with as well. You know what I mean? And artists coming in the door as well. I mean, just look at some of the more recent ones like Screamore. I mean, every track he's put out this year is a top 50 drum and bass track. Do you know what I mean? Just absolute insanity. And he's got some great stuff coming with us. Tentacles are obviously they're a group that's growing, and they brought in Alex Profuse now. They're a threesome, so they're going to be able to do some gigs across Europe a little bit more as well. So yeah, I mean, obviously the family's growing, and being a part of that for myself is absolutely phenomenal. You know, getting to work with you guys, working with some of these artists as well, to see, you know, how they work and dealing with that music, and using my expertise to help you guys as well. It's everybody's got their part to play, haven't they? And it's definitely refreshing to see something with no ego. Do you know what I mean? It's all about the music, and it always will be.
And that's how it should be, man. Like, I sometimes, you know, can play shows and stuff, and you can kind of see some people think that they're above other people, like in terms of like artist vibe and like little cliques and things like that. And I just think to myself that, like, man, one day we're all going to be dead. Like, there's no reason to kind of think that you're above anyone. And yeah, it's just weird. But anyway, yeah.
Well, one thing for me that actually proves all these points as well is you are the only drum and bass label to actually get Chook to come back and make drum and bass, which I never thought would happen. He was obviously off on that trance tip, and setting those sails. But yeah, you got him to actually come back and do some music as well, which is that's a big feathers to the bow of the label. I think he's a legend.
Yeah. Chook. I remember doing an assignment on his track. I think it was like Frozen or Sculptured with Face. Yeah, and it's just, and this is the thing with drum and bass, man, and just in music in general, just how things can 360 in like ridiculous ways. Like, for example, like you and me, Lee, speaking back in like 2011, sharing tunes, and now we're working together. Me and Aaron, me buying Aaron's tunes back in 2009, 2010, and now we're like almost best friends, brothers, you know, from my lad from another dad. Kenny, who first discovered Rusty K, Riot, and now he's working with Rustam, like Joe and me, who've known each other since like 2010, 2011, and here we are now. Like, it's just so weird how like these small things you never think about somehow all of a sudden can connect further down the line as well.
I'm gonna throw another spanner in the works on that as well.
Yes.
Talking of very weird stars aligning, did you know the name of the label that Chook were making his chants on?
No.
Magnitude.
Really?
Or Magnitude.
No,
I was buying the tunes. I've always loved Chook. Like when I met him at Virus, it was a bit of a fanboy moment for me as well, because I've always loved his music. So, but yeah, he was releasing chants on Magnitude, a trance label.
That's mad. He was, because like I spoke to him and I asked him like, how come like he just dipped out of drum and bass, and he said to me that he just kind of felt that like he just wasn't like gonna get big, or you know, that not a lot of people liked his music, and so made a massive point of it at the Virus night, that any one of my friends or anyone that I knew, I was like, yo man, like, so do you remember Chook? And he was like, yeah, I remember Chook, like absolutely nuts producer, but this is Chook. And they'd be like, no way. And they'd just be like, see, like everyone knows who you are, man. And he was just like sat there just like, I'm so shocked, like that all these people like knew who I was. And there was this moment that he had of like a bit of clarity and a bit of like, oh, why? You know, like if I would have known this back then, things probably would have been completely different. Because you know, back then there was no social media, there was like Facebook had just started coming around, and it wasn't like how it is today, where like now social media is more important than the music. And so he just kind of felt that living in Luxembourg, there's not really a drum and bass scene there, and you know, he just didn't feel that he was getting anywhere in his career, and so he just decided just to branch off and try something new. But it's good that he's back, man. Like he's an incredible producer, and I kind of feel that drum and bass needs that little bit of an old school bit of flair to kind of be remembered, to remember like these are the roots of neurofunk, you know, like funky, like stripped back, just grimy tunes that roll out.
Well, he created a big subgenre of kind of dark drum and bass, really, Chook, didn't he? And like hundreds of people copied him with what he was doing. He definitely rolled out some kind of new flavors, and it's almost like a deeper sound that you hear people like Nick B and that doing now and things like that. But he was the start of it, wasn't he?
Yeah, Chook, Face, like what was the labels like Shadow Law, Subtitles, Red Light. Yeah, there were so many great labels back then, man. I kind of find that drum and bass then was just so much more, not exciting, but it was like it felt like people had more creativity because there was like no limitations. It's not like today where a lot
it was more risky to put music out then as well, because obviously if you were going to put something out and invest money into vinyl, it had to be your best work. Do you know what I mean? Definitely. So you didn't get untold releases coming out right, left and center. And that's not to say they're all bad now, but you've got to go through a flurry of other releases that probably aren't as good because there's no risk to actually get them out. People just throw them out without double thinking too much. And I think that's what probably makes and breaks a label, really. You know, this is what separates Evolution Chamber, the thought process that goes and actually turning music away is what makes it so great as well.
Yeah, you know, definitely, totally agree. I kind of find as well that like back then, you know, it's so hard to explain what I'm going to say. How am I going to do this? Right. So, yeah, I kind of find that a lot of people these days are more focused on the loudness, the perfect kick, snare, transients and stuff like that, rather than the actual vibe and groove of the tune, like the initial idea. Like for us, like whenever people send us tunes, like we don't care like about the mix down. Like the most important thing is the vibe, the energy, the groove, like the actual idea of the tune over the loudness, the brick wall.
Well, we
WAV
care
files.
in the end we care about the quality, but we help them get there. And if
Exactly.
physical like bass already there, then we can't get there. Sorry for interrupting you.
No, don't apologize. But yeah,
Yeah,
like,
because sorry, I was just going
right.
to say as well. Yeah, I mean that's the technical side, and it can be replicated. It is a series of things that you can fix, right? But an idea is what's unique. That's what you're sharing with the world, right? Sorry, to add it on top. Yeah.
But it's like, do you remember, Kenny? Like when me and Kenny were sorting out our back-to-back for Blackout, we pulled out, like we went on a mad one, didn't we? For a whole week.
So much fun. Yeah,
pulling together like really old tracks, like from like the 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s, like old school Pendulum, old school Black Sun Empire, old Noisy, like from back in the day, like even like Stack of Skynet stuff. Like we just went on this full rampage. We got 1.5 hours to just like literally like just smash in as many tunes as we can, but also give like people a full journey of neuro. And we were even just like having to pull up all the old tunes, like we'd load them into like FL Studio and like to bring up the loudness, and you could just see this tiny little wave file like that while everything else was like that. And it was just like, Jesus, man, like, because back then no one cared, man. Like no one cared about the loudness, no one cared about that. All they cared about was the actual tune.
But everybody had a different studio as well.
Exactly.
And nowadays, everybody tries to sound the same.
Yeah.
Now, electronic music never sounded more scared, in my opinion, than it does now. It has to be super loud, like James was talking about. And then we have all these Patreon producers coming in, where they just use all these high-quality samples that, like, people like, I don't know, Abyss or Imanu or whoever, Synergy are doing. And they're throwing, and they send us demos with these high quality drums, and then some stuff is really awkward, like it doesn't come together. So nowadays it's just about throwing a tune as fast together as you can, so you can reap the social media. This is how it sounds nowadays, and I'm also missing a little bit of
the loud wars, they're calling it, isn't it? It's called the loud wars.
Loudness wars.
It definitely is a stain, really, on dance music. I mean, if it's all a little bit quieter, then it's all right. But as soon as somebody wants to go that bit louder, then everybody's following suit to trying to keep up.
The problem is if you know what you're doing and you're a super engineer and you get a loud sound, and it just happens that the shit gets loud and you get this incredible loops without really pushing. It's just the way you put the tunes together. But then I was a victim of this too for a long time. But then you hear these loud tunes and you don't know how to achieve that, and you just try to push it without really knowing what the engineering behind is. And then it just sounds like shit. But you can use the whole loudness war as a character itself, if that makes sense. It created the loudness more. It needed producers to compete, and so make it a creative process, if that makes sense, to get along with the loudness war, if that makes sense. But
sure. Well, let's get into another track, guys. Obviously, 5 years of Evolution Chamber compilation due out in January. Aaron, I'm going to let you choose the next track. What's one of your favorite tracks on this compilation that we can play right now?
This would be either Trail of Tears or Nervous. I say I say let's go with Trail of Tears from Magnitude. That's my number one on the label.
I like it. This is Magnitude, Trail of Tears. Right, guys, we're going to jump into a few more questions that have got to do a bit of a round robin, and then we've got some quick fire questions as well.
Okay.
So one question for you, James. A few artists that are going to be making their debut on the label in 2025. Name us a couple who we should be looking out for. We don't need to know, obviously, the exclusives here, but give us a couple of names that are going to be showcased on the label and you think are going to make some big waves.
All of them. Every
Very
single one of them.
I love
man.
that.
Yeah, like all of them, bro.
Yeah.
Like there's so many great producers out there, like, and there's some as well that aren't even on Evolution Chamber that we've got our eye on. I think right now, like in terms of neuro, and I personally think that like with Noisier leaving and like disbanding, it's created this kind of like, it went into this weird moment of like a bit of feeling lost, you know, but now I think that ripple has now started to kind of like die out, and now people are now coming with like really great tunes. But yeah, like I think Harrispex, a guy from Hungary, really awesome guy, Balint. He did a track on the first Transmissions, Gynura. And he's been working on doing his debut single. He's actually going to be on Transmissions 3, and he has pretty much finalized his single, and it's, yeah, man, one of the tunes on there is so angry, and you just would not think of it. And that's what I love about neuro producers, because like some of them are the most chill people, but they write the most angriest shit, man, that you're just like, yo, dude, like, who pissed you off? But
and they're
yeah,
like, no one.
yeah, exactly. Like Harrispex, man, for sure. Like, is such a talented guy, and like I think with Hungary, and a lot of people kind of, how can I say, a lot of people are mainly focused on like, let's say, Jade, Mindscape, but Hungary does have some really great producers out there, man. Like what's his name? Oh my god, I forgot his name. Livion. People pronounce it in England Livon, but Livion. He's really talented. Another Balance. Yeah, Harrispex as well.
Who's digging in at the minute, Kenny? What artists?
I would have said Harrispex as well. That's who I thought, because he had some next level shit.
Yeah,
definitely.
I think he like with Harrispex sound, it kind of gives me the old Bree 12 inches vibe, but more current, you know, musical, heavy, like, and technical. Yeah, it has
super clean, super
clean, man. Like he's a really talented guy. I think Crucify Me from Ukraine. He's a guy that we've been speaking to quite a lot. Really cool guy too. He's got, he'll be on Transmissions Part 3 with a collaboration with Humanon. And then, we're working towards finalizing his debut release too. Ewkols is a really talented guy as well. He's from Belarus. We're going to be working on a single with him as well. Also Traced. Traced is an absolute don. And I feel that he is also one of those guys who is massively overlooked, underappreciated as well. Like Traced brings some absolute bangers, man, and he is like, for me, one of the best homegrown UK artists that's coming through at the moment, hands down. And yes, super awesome guy as well, and I feel that he should be so much bigger than what he is. Like,
he just needs to be supported and listened, you know, definitely. Because obviously everybody's in there, I'm only going to play music from my label and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? And he's had some massive releases, some key releases. He's bringing one of my favorites as well on this EP, the 5th. So the 5th is definitely one to look for. He's blowing up quite well.
There's a collab that he's got going. I'm not going to say who with, because if I say it, and if any labels are watching it and they come in and they swipe it from us, I will be angry. But there's a collab that he's working on, man. It is ridiculous.
He's got a few. He's got a few out there as well.
Yes, for sure. Who else is there, man? Like there are loads out there. Away. as well. Like, man, that kid's like, we've been speaking to him for how long, Aaron? Now
I don't even know.
it's over a year, almost 2 years, probably.
Almost 2 years now.
Sorry?
Yeah, almost 2 years now.
Yeah, almost 2 years. He's ridiculously talented. I think he's got a very, very bright future ahead of him. Yeah, and Thieves as well, the guy that he collaborated with on Heaven's Gate. Yeah, I've actually been speaking to him quite a lot, and he's actually got, well, he's preparing a whole load of demos to send over to us. Oh man, I know I'm missing people. Tentacles. Yes. Yeah, those boys are ridiculously talented. They thump tunes out like it's a factory, man. I don't even know how they do it.
Well, there's 3 of them.
Yeah, that is true.
They're probably all doing individual tracks.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't hurt to obviously bring in Alex Profuse. I mean, he's another tune factory as well. He's pumping out some masters, and he's done some stuff for me on the other label. And I've heard some big tunes. Obviously, he's got forthcoming as well. So yeah, being part of Tentacles and that group as well. They're a super group really now, aren't they? If you think about it.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, you know what? Let's give. Sorry, go on. What were you going to say, James?
I was going to say that I played with Alex in Prague in December, and yeah, it was like we've spoken for quite a long time. It was the first time actually meeting each other, and gave me a little bit of the background of like how he linked up with the other guys. And yeah, I feel that them guys, as soon as like a few little things are kind of ironed out a little bit more, they're gonna just take off, man, like with no limitations, you know.
Yeah, for real. Well, this Transmissions 3 EP, we're jumping ahead a little bit after Evo, but what say we give everybody a little taster of what's to come? Do you want to pick one of the tracks from this, James? And
Transmissions, oh man,
yeah, let's do it.
That's hard because there's like 5 like real bangers on this. Oh man.
Well, let's go. We were talking about Trace getting some recognition. Let's play a little clip of his collaboration with the 5th.
Yeah, sure.
Sick.
Let's do it. Here we go. Here's Traced and the 5th, forthcoming on Transmissions 3 sneak peek.
License to kill, not a force to be reckoned with. Load up ammunition, aim for the nemesis, aim for the kill. Shots fired, never miss. Gunning for them back, stabbing snakes cause they're venomous. Venomous, 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 shots fired, never miss. Gunning for them backstabbing snakes cause they're venomous. Venomous, 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 venomous. snakes cause they're venomous. Venomous, 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 Nemesis, aim for the Nemesis.
Right, there we have it. We're almost at the end of the episode, and we're going to leave you guys with some quick fire questions, a little bit of fun, just to see what these guys' answers is. They've not seen the questions ahead of time on this one, so should be quite interesting to see what they answer us with. Right, let's start. So, first of all, James, one for you. What's the worst flight company in the world? Because you don't have much luck, do you?
All of them, man. Every single one has a problem. No, I'd say all. Oh man, it depends where you're going. Ryanair's bad. Wizz Air's terrible. EasyJet, no. Like all of the budget airlines are terrible. But
bring back Monarch. Monarch was a good budget.
Yeah, it was.
I wish they would come back.
I would say the worst has to be. It's out of Wizz Air, Ryanair, isn't
it? Yeah, Wizz Air, I'd probably.
Yeah, Wizz Air, definitely.
Okay,
Yeah.
next question for Kenny then. So, for those who are watching who may not understand this question, there's a film that's based in Scotland that's kind of made Scotland worldwide famous. It's called Train Spotting, and there's a character on Train Spotting who loves to fight. So, Kenny, my question for you is: Have you met any real life Begbies?
Oh yeah. It's most of Scotland, to be honest. Me included, man.
So next question for Aaron.
Good character.
No, go on. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off then, Kenny. I'll let it down. What were you going to say?
No, nothing.
Plenty of Begbies out there. So one for you then, Aaron. Why the fuck are Swiss people so good looking?
Are they? Oh, I'm off the... That's because we're.
It's all that cheese, man.
They drink children's blood. That's what it is. They're like the elite.
No, it's probably because of the clean water.
yeah. That's
It's
definitely
clean water.
Healthy
I
air.
wish I had a funny reply about it, but I say.
But you're too busy grooming yourself into the camera. I keep seeing you getting distracted and having a good look at yourself there.
If that's true at all, what you're saying, then I guess it's because his life quality is pretty good in Switzerland.
Yeah,
like food and air and water and everything, and it's really good here. Yeah.
Well, a question for you, James: is Evolution Chamber all just an elaborate plan to bring back Overtech music?
Maybe, and bring back Memtrix, and bring back Noisier, and bring back the death penalty. I don't know. I was
Another
just
one-
trying to think of something to bring back, and for some reason that just came
that
into
was
my
all
head.
it could be.
Bring back murder. Another one for you then, Aaron. Obviously talking about very sexy people. Who is the sexiest person on Evolution Chamber in the family, and why is it me?
That's James.
No, it's not.
Oh,
man.
it's Lee. It's Lee, of course.
Yeah, the question is, who's the sexiest person in Evolution Chamber family, and why is it me?
It's because of your beard.
That's right. And then one for you, Kenny. Is it true that Scottish law states you must headbutt people at least once a day?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty much a greeting, you know.
Yeah, I would have thought so.
But it's one coming from a place of kindness.
Yeah, a broken nose in place of kindness. Well, it's kind of like Australia. In Australia, everyone calls each other the C word, don't they?
Yeah.
It's an endearing term. So headbutting in Scotland is a very endearing term.
Yeah,
Listen, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you guys for today. I've really enjoyed talking to you on camera, and yeah, celebrating 5 years of Evolution Chamber. We're going to do a few quick plugs before we go because there's a lot happening. We've obviously got the album, which is due on which date, James? Go on.
My brain's gone dead now. It's on the.
Do you want me to give you a clue?
It's on the 3rd or the 5th. It's on the 3rd. Yeah, it's on the
3rd
3rd
of
of
January.
January. Yeah,
3rd
3rd
of
of January.
Very soon.
Yep, I knew that. I was just testing you. New label manager.
Well, that's funny because I was testing you. No, I've actually got it all up in front of me anyway. So, but yeah, it should be out by the time obviously this goes live. And we've also got events going on as well. Evolution Chamber is going to be throwing out a lot more label nights, particularly in the UK. We've got Bristol coming up in February. Is that right?
That's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
And we have every 6 months now in Zurich a label night. Next one is going to be with Kenny. Looking forward to be here again.
Forward, man, can't wait.
Not confirmed yet, but it should be in May.
Yeah, finalizing the next headliner, but we won't say anything yet.
And obviously stage takeovers. We're going to be podcasting. We're going to be releasing relentlessly with some grade A prime neurofunk drum and bass as well. So a lot to come from the label. And of course the t-shirts, they should be on sale by January.
Evolution Chamber t-shirts, get yours now. They are awesome.
And I believe there's some Ewkols t-shirts as well. Is that right, Kenny?
There are. Yeah.
Where can we get our hands on the Ewkols t-shirts?
I'll drop a link as well in the under the videos.
Yeah, you'll be able to get it on the YouTube channel under the videos. So you've been listening to DNB Raps. I'm the host, Lee UHF. Thank you to Kenny, aka Ewkols, James Overtech, aka Magnitude, and of course Aaron Task Horizon. Sorry we couldn't get the rest of the clan, but I'm sure we'll do another one at the later date.
Yeah, definitely.
And get them involved.
Be really awesome to get Rustam, Receptor, and Joe in.
Yes,
That'll
Receptor.
be like proper crew.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think maybe down the line as well, we get some individual interviews maybe with some of the boys, obviously, when they do releases like Screamore. And I'd love to obviously delve a bit deeper into the past of yourselves, Kenny and Aaron as well. Maybe some one-on-ones we can have later down the line if you're up for it.
Yeah, would love to.
Yeah, definitely, man. 100%.
Brilliant stuff. Lovely. Well, thank you, boys. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for having us, man.
No problem at all. Don't forget to buy Evolution Chamber, the 5-year anniversary album, out now.